The Legislative and Legal Affairs Committee. It's 6:05 p.m. The only item on the agenda this evening is the question of the appointment of the Ward 7 councilor. And at the conclusion of last meeting, what we did is we came to the conclusion that we should develop some sort of criteria for selection of that individual. Since then, there was a question whether a person from outside of the ward could be appointed as a person to sit in that seat, and the city solicitor has actually come out with an opinion, and I will read the opinion to the members of the committee. Chairperson and members, Legislative and Legal Affairs Committee, Marlborough City Council, 140 Main Street, Marlborough, Mass. Regarding Ward 7. Dear Chairperson and members, in response to your question on July 16th as to whether or not an individual would be required to be a resident of Ward 7 in order to be appointed as the Ward 7 Council, I have reviewed the following City Council sections: Division 1, Section 44C, Division 1, Section 59, Division 1, Section 59A. I have also reviewed the City Council Order Number 03-10013 and a special act of the Legislative dated May 8, 2003. It is my opinion that the special act of the state waived only the requirements of 59A, that is, the process, as to the need to hold an election to fill the vacancy in Ward 7. The underlying requirements outlined in the city charter required that to be eligible to be a ward councilor, one must be eligible to vote within the ward, that is, a resident. While the Commonwealth of Massachusetts adopted a waiver of the election requirement to fill a vacancy by appointment, it did not waive the requirement of residency. Therefore, it is my opinion that the individual who may be appointed should be a resident of the ward. Very respectfully, James Golden, Jr., City Solicitor. Another point that we discussed that evening was criteria that we would utilize for the selection of that individual who would be filling the seat. I sat down and I came up with just a few. I'll pass these out to the members of the committee. I think you already have one. Members of the press. I'll give one to Larry. I know. There's what, 4 over there? Sure. I know 4, maybe 4. Okay, these are just some ideas that I had, and maybe there are other ideas for selection criteria that could be added to this list so that we could utilize these as for selection of that individual. Number 1, a resident of the city of Marlborough. The person could actually, be within the ward, moved out of the city, and because that's happened in the past. 2, must be a registered voter. According to this letter that the city solicitor states, they have to be a registered voter. Resident of Ward 7. Those are the bounds that are set, in, the 2001 redistricting. Mm-hmm. Number 4, must show an active interest in the issues that are confronting the city. Number 5, must have addressed an interest in serving to a member of the city council. Should be a comma in there. And 6, running for office in November shall not disqualify an individual in seeking the seat. These are just 6 things that I felt should be considered. And I don't know if the other members of the committee have anything that they would like to add as selection criteria.
No, I think it's a good set of criteria right there as you have it. I would add that we talked about the last time waiting until after the nomination papers are in and certified before we make a decision. Thus, that would give somebody who meets these criteria an opportunity to express an interest to the one of the 3 of us or any other city councilor for that matter to see if they're of interest, and then we'll put that name in. We'll talk about the names if there are more than one, and we'll go from there prior to our next meeting in August, August 28th, I believe. 24th, excuse me. So that's I think, the format that we've agreed to at this point in time, or that we're thinking about, I should say. And if anyone has any other thoughts, then we should bring them out now or add to this list of criteria.
No, I'm fine with this list.
Any other councils?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I will show that disagreement in one of them, as I stated at the last meeting, and I believe it's inherently unfair to the other candidate if there's only two running. I don't know if a third has pulled papers,
Yep.
and there could be a third, that we put someone in that seat that has that is running in November. That is unfair to the other person's campaign. And with that criteria in there, I would not vote for either one of the candidates when it comes in front of the council.
I think, Dick, what you're referring to obviously is item number 6 here. I'll just repeat it for the public. Running for office in the November election shall not disqualify any individual in seeking the seat. I think one of the reasons that's in there is if there is only one candidate, for example, you wouldn't want to disqualify that individual just because he is running, and therefore now you're down to 0.
I would withdraw my objections if there was only one that submitted papers, but if two people have submitted papers...
And if there are two, then again, one may show a greater interest in the position than the other. For example, if the other person's never come forward, or the other person is a candidate such as we have running for mayor, then again, that shouldn't disqualify somebody from running. So I think it's a discretionary thing that the legal and legislative people will make a decision, and then the council as a whole, I think, would then have an opportunity to vote with or against the discretion that
I
people here
think that
give.
criteria is very subjective. You could say one candidate's been here at every city council meeting for a year, and the other one hasn't showed up, so therefore the other one has showed interest. So that it could weigh for that candidate. So I mean, that's very subjective. I know you're going to have to make a choice, but I'm just telling you where my vote will be on a full council, that if either or is nominated.
But I think that the only reason I threw that one in there is primarily because if we only have those individuals that are running for office that are the ones under consideration for the position, then you would be handcuffed as to selection of any individual. In other words, I'm just saying, don't limit it.
Well, the counselor to my left the other night
Yeah.
is a firm proponent of not filling the seat at all. And that may lead credence to his argument, not my argument. So I'm just telling you where I'm at, that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think by the 15th, we'll know.
Yeah. Yes.
Chairman, I understand what Councilor Yerkes is getting at, and I don't necessarily disagree with him. I think the process needs to continue. I'm glad to see some criteria finally put on paper, and whether I agree or disagree with the findings of the city solicitor, obviously, this criteria is going to be voted on by the committee, and as Councilor Katz said, the council can take it or leave it, and I think obviously the weight of the committee will hold quite a bit when it hits the floor. I think the suggestion made by Councilor Katz at the last meeting for tabling it and addressing, taking the vote after papers are submitted was a very good recommendation. It's kind of like you almost hope at this point that only one person submits papers, so we don't have to deal with it at that point. But I understand what Councilor Yerkes is saying, and I don't disagree with him at all. But I think waiting till papers are submitted, and then we can deal with it at the August meeting in a quick fashion to try to resolve this and get it behind us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Recommendation to accept?
Well, what we should do, yeah, I think that we probably should use the criteria as shown, so in other words, we can accept the criteria as presented. If there is anything else that anybody wants to add to that, we can add to it or subtract from. Okay, entertain a motion to accept the criteria.
I'll make a motion that we use this selection criteria and accept it as our guide
Okay,
to filling this position.
okay, motion made.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Do you want to,
The only other comment I'd make again is just reiterate that if there is interest out there, please make note of it to one of the city councilors, in particular, Mr. Clancy, who heads up the Legal and Legislative Affairs, just so everybody knows that there is indeed an interest by somebody or more than one person, so we can start to review the criteria versus that person and other people who may be interested. And you should do that as soon as possible.
okay. So you want to, we probably should table until August?
When do you want to have the meeting,
Could set it for
so we can
August.
put this person on the August agenda?
Yeah, we can set it for August 25th. That's Monday, August 25th, that we can meet at
7:30?
7:30.
Okay,
Okay,
sounds good.
so, and legal, 7:30. Okay, so what we'll do is that, entertain a motion to table until August 25th, and we'll meet at that time, and we'll select that individual.
Motion to table?
Motion to table,
So, second.
seconded, all in favor?
Yep.
Just one other thing is that the Legislative and Legal Affairs Committee has been looking at the fees. I put together a whole group of fees that will be under review. I've talked with the various department heads. I've given them the present fee schedule, and I'll be going back and looking for recommendations from them. So we'll be doing those real soon. So once they get that information back, then we can start the hearings on those. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Made and seconded. All in favor? Very good.
Have on the city of Marlborough in the form of saving money and helping us out during this time of budget need. Last time we met, we had an opportunity to speak with Bob Landry, Doran Kraus, and Bob Spencer primarily as it relates to requesting from them that they go ahead and put together a recycling education program. Just by way of background, there were 3 ways we wanted to study this. The initial way was voluntary. Second was then considering mandatory programs. And third, and hopefully we don't get there, is the pay-as-you-throw program. So we wanted to start off with the voluntary aspect, and that dealt with increased education primarily. So having said that, Bob and Doran and others were kind enough to go ahead and put together an education program that we're kind of going to read tonight so everybody can hear what it is and stop periodically throughout that and let Bob and Doran put a special emphasis on certain parts or allow the committee up here, Dick and Ed and myself, to ask questions. Hopefully we'll get this done in a relatively short period of time. It's a 3.5-page program, and we're going to start reading it now and go from there. So anytime you have something you want to add or emphasize, just raise your hand, catch my attention, or anybody here, just also just catch my attention, we'll ask a question. The Marlborough Residential Recycle Education Program. Purpose: to increase the rate of recycling by residents of the City of Marlborough. The following education program is recommended by the City Council Public Works Committee. This recommended program was developed by staff of the Marlborough DPW, Board of Health, We Care Environmental, and assistance from staff at Mass DEP. It has been reviewed by the committee at several meetings. By increasing the rate of recycling, the city will save money through avoided tipping fees at the We Care composting facility. Based on experience in other communities, it is likely that an enhanced public education program to promote recycling will result in higher recycling rates at the curb and at the drop-off facility. As previously presented, the committee, every 5% increase in curbside recycling will generate $78,000 of savings to the city of Marlborough. Due to financial constraints, the city has decided to work with existing staff and volunteers to promote recycling as compared to hiring a recycling coordinator at this point in time. Technical assistance will be available from the DEP staff to assist the city staff in this effort. Implementation of the plan will be through the City Recycling Committee, which is appointed by the mayor. It will require some staff time from DPW, Board of Health, and We Care, as well as volunteers. The Recycling Committee membership should be expanded to include interested citizens, businesses, Chamber of Commerce, schools, civic groups, and neighborhood associations. A press release should be developed asking for new members. I'd like to stop at that point in time and just ask Doran or Bob the amount of staff time that you might anticipate from city employees. What I'm getting at there is I want them to be able to also do their regular job. And if this fits in with their regular job, then that's fine. But I was curious as to what you thought the time commitment would be of some of the city employees.
Quite frankly, the city employees is myself. It's real difficult to put a time frame on it. As much as I'd like to spend an awful lot of time on it, getting the education out and the word out, I have so many commitments that it really becomes difficult to do due diligence for education. The other city employer, city staff that would likely be involved with this would be Board of Health Sanitarian Bob Landry. Once again, I'm sure you know what his timetable is like. I would like to spend 5 hours a week or more, but quite frankly, it's a stretch to be able to commit even to that amount. The program absolutely needs time, and it's a difficult thing to come up with.
As far as time goes, you also mentioned in here the request for volunteers, and that the city's recycling committee that's already in existence participate more and more. Are those individuals, are you still looking for additional volunteers? Do you have some people in mind at this point in time? How are you going to get the word out?
We have one gentleman that's with us tonight, Mike Manning, in the back row there, has expressed interest in participating with us on the recycling committee. It was our thought that the more numbers that we can get, the easier it would be to divvy up some of the education, perhaps meeting with some of the neighborhood associations, meeting with Chamber of Commerce. Any interested citizens, I think, would be welcomed wholeheartedly, if nothing else, just to get a better perspective of different ideas that are out there and options that we can pursue. Obviously, our entire goal is, at this point, is education. And the more help we have through volunteers, the easier it will be for everyone. And I think the better we'll be able to do the job.
The press release that you talked about in this paragraph, is that something the recycling committee is going to put together?
Well, we could either do it that way or work on that through the mayor's office. I did have a conversation with the mayor about that. Bob and I met with the mayor late last week, and he seemed agreeable to expanding the committee and moving forward with the promotion program.
Okay, the
I
next,
have a question.
oh, sure, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have you talked with the mayor on how big this committee's going to go? I mean, the way you're talking, it could go to 40 or 50, and it would be unwieldy.
I agree with you. I wouldn't want to see it get to be 40 or 50 on the committee itself, although if we can have an audience of 40 or 50, I think that would be wonderful. I think that would demonstrate a vast amount of interest in the community, and I don't see a downside to that.
So maybe keep it at a voting group of 5 or 6 or whatever the number may be.
Precisely.
Yeah, from some of the other communities that I'm familiar with, they develop a network of volunteers that maybe aren't necessarily participating in all the committee decision-making, et cetera, so that you can divvy up the work. And so people who live in Marlborough who are interested in helping promote recycling but don't want to commit to meetings, for instance, but could put in a couple hours a month, we could use them.
possibly even members from the senior center could very well be interested in participating and helping us out in any number of forms, perhaps stuffing some envelopes for education distribution, or perhaps making calls to local businesses to see if they'd be willing to participate. You know, there are a number of avenues that can be pursued along that line as well.
The next sentence, and I want to stop after reading it also, is it says, "The city's contract hauler of recyclables and trash, BFI, will also participate in the program to promote recycling." Maybe if, Terry, could you come up for a moment? This is Terry Grady from BFI. And Terry, the question to you will be is, A, is this coming as a complete surprise to you, or have you given some thought as to how BFI can participate? We'd love to hear how that's going to come together.
A lot of it's coming as a complete surprise, but me and Doran have worked together for, quite a few years, on the program. I've had some experience in the schools here myself and with different people at the schools. But, I think I have to agree with Doran is that there is opportunity here for a higher effort on the recycling. And, no, as we've always said, no, we'll always be a part of it, and we will participate in the program.
Has BFI participated in other communities, schools, and other neighborhood associations and things of that nature?
Yes, we have.
So you have an existing program in place that you could perhaps implement here in Marlboro?
Yes, I do. And actually, we used to have our own in-school program, and like a lot of downsizing in corporate America, and it's the same as municipal America, that program basically phased out. But I am working with various different independent subcontractors that provide that type of program that have done a great job, in the schools, and they focus primarily on that. So actually, from my experience, they've done a better job than we could do from our own in-house staff.
Okay, the next paragraph talks about the results of the new education and promotional efforts will be tracked and evaluated. With monthly reports to the City Council, many communities set a recycling goal, such as tons per year or pounds per person, and then report regularly to the public on the progress that is being made. Doran or Bob or Terry, what are some of these evaluation criteria that you're going to use? Have you given some thought to those as to how you're going to measure success or failure?
I'll defer to Bob on that, but my thoughts on it is we know, relatively speaking, what our recycle rate is. Not so much on a household basis, but tons of rubbish that is recycled, or tons of recyclables compared to the total tons of waste generated in the city. And right now, the curbside program is about 11%. So we could use those numbers as a starting point and go from there. I'd defer to Bob to see if he has anything additional to add.
Only that our company, We Care, does not typically get involved with the curbside recycling. It's more the city's contractor, BFI. And Terry works with a lot of communities. What's a typical expectation?
It varies from community to community as far as the recycling rate. But what we could do is put together a program where we actually compare it to other communities, using, different targets that way to see how you compare to like communities or other communities within Massachusetts. And that statistical data I have given to me monthly, so it's pretty easy that I can provide Doran with that type of information.
So we could come up with a reasonable goal to start with?
Yes.
Based on other communities this size, et cetera?
Exactly.
And we could also develop our own track record to see if we're progressing or holding steady or dropping back.
Councilor Clancy?
Yeah, this goes to Terry.
Yes.
Do you have a weekly accounting as to the amount of, to the poundage of recyclables collected within the city?
Yes, we do. Actually, we have it daily.
A daily amount. So in other words, do you separate it according to, I know we mix the plastics, the tin and the aluminum together along with the glass. Then we have the newspaper that might be separate.
Right.
Okay? I don't know how you do that, because I know that the paper goes in one and the other recyclables go into another bin. But the point is that, you have to have baseline figures to start any type of whatever if we want to increase it by 11%, we have to have a baseline figure. We really need those baseline figures to figure if we're making any progress. Now, if you do it daily, then, you know, that's a start. And is it, when you do it daily, is there sections of the city that are actually have more poundage than other poundages? You know,
What you could do, and we've done this with other communities, is, you know, if you track it on a daily basis, it would give you basically, on a 5-day-a-week basis, you know, what that particular area is generating for both commingled and newspaper. Because what happens is, at the end of the day, when we collect and empty, you know, we track the number of pounds commingled, number of pounds newspaper, and all that, it goes into a computer system where at the end of the month, we generate a report that we send to the city as far as what the different commodities and how much we picked up between solid waste, commingled, and newspaper.
okay, now, I know that it's every other week.
Yeah.
And one of the thoughts that I threw out last meeting was the possibility of a weekly, or even a weekly recyclable pickup, you know, with your trash. Of course, that has to be, there's a dollar figure that is going to be charged.
Yeah.
Then I said, well, maybe we can come up with something where we have a pilot program within a certain area of the city where they collect it, you know, every week for a month, and find out if there's any change in the amount of recyclables. You know, it's almost like weighing everything from this pilot area now and then later. You know, if we do it weekly versus bi-weekly. You know, but we'd have to negotiate a contract on that, so.
Right. We've done some studies on communities that have gone from every other week service to weekly service, and there wasn't a huge amount of volume increase, you know, in that type of schedule. I think the biggest thing is the education process is more important than the level of service that you provide. I mean, as long as everyone has an outlet for recyclables, especially in Massachusetts where you have a bottle bill, you know, you see a lower volume of bottles, cans, you know, due to the redemption, you know, of those materials.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think you'll find, maybe the cost may not offset, you know, the goal. I mean, it's something that we can take a look at, and I can provide Doran with some information on communities that we've done that in.
You know, Mike, just as an idea, how many pounds of paper or tons of paper are collected weekly from the city? Do you have any idea, Doran?
Not off the top of my head, no.
You know,
No, I don't have that information off the top of my head.
because that's all recyclable, you know.
Yes, it
See, a lot of people just have their newspaper and they just say, hey, I'm done with it. Here's the wastebasket, in it goes, and out it goes with all of your other trash, instead of going into the recycling bin.
And one point to be made, there is a lot of weight to newspapers and paper products. And as we have said on previous meetings, for every ton of paper that is taken out of the waste stream, it's 1 ton of waste that we're not paying for, and it's approaching about $100 a ton.
Doran, you at one point provided me with these Marlboro recycling rates for 2002. On it, you said mixed paper. I don't know if that's different than what Ed's asking. Mixed paper was 1,315 tons.
Right, that is all of the paper products, newspapers, junk mail, containers, and that type of paper.
And that's out of 17,233 tons.
Continue.
Okay, I'm going to continue. The recommended approach starts with implementing recycling in all city departments and the school system so that the city leads by example. The program also involves businesses in donating prizes that are dispersed in a lottery system that awards prizes to randomly selected residents who are setting their recyclables out on the curb and taking them to the recycling drop-off facility. You had some conversation with the mayor, I assume. He's on board with going ahead and talking to city departments and getting that implemented, and
We apprised the mayor of what we were considering. He wanted to have an opportunity to review the proposal that you have before you tonight, and to get back to us if he had any concerns. And we didn't get any response, so I'm assuming at this point that he's okay, but I haven't received any confirmation to that.
and he'll bring it to the school committee as well to talk to the school individuals.
I would assume so, but we could even do that.
Okay.
What about Aspen Valley?
That's a very good question. Dick just asked, what about Aspet Valley? Are they going to be on board as well, or are you going to try to get them on board?
we're willing to talk to everybody. I'd be
Pulls over there, you can talk to her and see what her thought process is.
more than
Put you
happy
on
to
the
talk
hot
to
seat, council.
Excuse me?
Put you on the hot seat, council.
We were talking about trying to get the city departments and the schools involved in recycling. And the question came up, not only are we going to talk to our Marlboro Public Schools, but Aspet Valley as a whole also, and see if they'd be interested in leading by example and participating in a recycling program.
Well, you can call my secretary, make
Another one we're going to miss. Here's continuing, the solid waste plan. One of the first asks for the recycling committee should be to complete a brief solid waste plan that outlines an action plan to accomplish the goals. DEP has provided the city with the outline of such a plan, and most of the information required already exists. City departments, we just talked about this, but I'll read it quickly. With the support from the recycling committee, the mayor will send a notice and recycling checklist to all department heads stating that within 30 days of each department will report to the mayor with a completed checklist for the department's recycling program. Many departments are already recycling, but the plan should identify ways to improve participation in the recycling program by city employees. The checklist will identify a department recycling contact, the materials to be recycled, the size, number, and location of recycling containers, methods to promote recycling, such as memos and staff meetings, as well as a plan, in brackets, tips to comply with the city's existing buy recycling policy to purchase products made from recycling materials. The next heading under that solid waste plan is schools, and it was a similar criteria set up as for the city departments. So I'm going to skip reading that. Sure, go ahead.
I was trying to figure out what this meant, to educate adult residents since, I wasn't exactly sure what that meant.
The first paragraph there, Bob or Dorn, says the Marlboro Public Schools include 3 elementary, 1 middle, and 1 high school. Besides the financial savings from recycling, the schools are one of the best ways to educate adult residents since there seems to be a run on words there. Students bring their recycling habits home to mom and dad.
Right. The thought on that is that if you educate the children, they will apply pressure to the parents on what is right. And that's really what that sentence is trying to get at.
You know, one of the things about schools, you know, I in the cafeterias, this has always been, you know, being an environmentalist, you know, we had a washroom at one point. You know, we used to wash all of our dishes after meals. And what has happened since they privatized it and went to a concern that puts on the meals, they have gone to styrofoam trays, styrofoam dishes and things like that. And everything is disposed of into the trash. We could not go back to the old system because they dismantled the dishwashing center, and it is now a storage room. You know, I don't know how they would ever comply with any type of a plan to separate the amount of styrofoam from the food.
Right, and the styrofoam is a very difficult material to recycle. There are very limited reuse materials or reuse products for that. And I'd have to defer to Terry on that one because he deals with that one all the time.
Yeah, it's one of the products. I mean, when plastics again was in business up in Leominster, it was an item that had been experimented with. The biggest problem they had, it created a lot of health issues because of poor product quality, and the facility ended up going out of business. So I don't know of a facility in Massachusetts that recycles the polystyrene. So it's a problem product.
Yeah. See, I know that We Care will, you know, when they go online, the school trash goes down to We Care. You know, that will be food, which is the organics, which we were talking about, that we want to recycle, and then we're going to have that other mix in there. You know, I don't know what you do with it. I don't know if you separate it out. You know, it's like separating out the plastics.
It's separated but goes on to landfill disposal.
So in other words, they wind
It
up
can't be
being-
recycled once it comes in there.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
The next section The Senior Center. The Marlboro Senior Center is a potential source of volunteers who can assist the City Recycling Committee in its effort to implement a recycling program. Some potential tasks include contact businesses about donating prizes for the lottery, drive neighborhood streets to conduct surveys of the number of homes setting out recycling bins, tally weekly and monthly recycling results, posting posters, and other educational information around the community. BFI. The city's contract with BFI for curbside recycling collection requires the following BFI for promotion of curbside recycling. And Terry, as I read through these, if there are any that you think are going to be an issue, let me know, but hopefully Bob didn't put them down without talking to you first. The first one is attendance at and assistance with recycling program kickoff events, preparation and distribution of pamphlets, calendars, or other materials approved by the Commissioner to all users which describe the program and explain the requirements for disposal. 3, annual presentations at all elementary schools, grades kindergarten through 4th, which emphasize the importance of recycling locally and beyond. 4, promotional opportunities for participating residents to win prizes for participation. 5, annual appearances on the Access channel of the local cable TV to inform residents of the specifics of the recycling program and to answer questions concerning the same. 6, preparation of semi-annual newspaper articles about the program and new initiatives. 7, participation and attendance at the city's local recycling committee meetings. And 8, assistance with outreach efforts to ethnic and minority communities to promote participation among non-English speaking communities. The status of these contractual requirements should be determined, and a plan for BFI's implementation for the remainder of the contract term should be developed. The city's contract with BFI also allows for additional recyclable materials to be added to the curbside collection program as markets develop. One material that may be feasible to add in the near future is used clothing and textiles. Terry, I don't know if this is the first time you've seen these, but does all that sound reasonable for BFI?
Yeah, the only one that would be an issue would be the clothing and textiles, because, the trucks aren't designed, they're all 2-compartment trucks, and you would basically need a truck that would have a 3rd compartment for that type of material. Most of that materials have been very successful in drop-off programs between Logan Memorial, Salvation Army, those types of charitable groups.
Terry, how do you prove that you're doing all of the 8? Do you file reports, or does Doran oversee, or the mayor, or what? I mean, it's in the contract, but how do we know that the participation is being done and done fully?
Well, Doran oversees everything, but,
Right.
a lot of the things, I'll be honest, have been lax.
Yep. On BFI side and on my side.
Just a question to Terry. Terry, do you think that they would say, if we want to try to work in the textiles portion, if you had a person or a company that was interested in being a subcontractor to you, that would go around, if we knew that we were going to have textiles placed on the curb, they could go around and collect the textiles. A lot of people, have loads of clothing and they just don't know what to do with it. They you go down behind the Goodwill store, that bin is overflowing weekly. But if you had a subcontractor would be willing to go around and collect the textiles on a weekly basis or something like that, to make the circuit of the city, or every so many weeks, do you think that would work?
I've never had any experience with any company that does that type of collection service. I don't know if you have, Doran, at all.
There is one planet out there that we have worked with in the past for a curbside textile collection program, and that was a company called Planet Aid. And if you notice, they have boxes throughout New England, and we have dealt with them in the past. They have expressed willingness to add additional boxes throughout the city. And I think the best way to approach something like that would be to get the additional boxes in here and really promote the locations to make it as convenient for the residents as possible to use them.
See, I know that yearly at the high school, we used to have I don't know if it was Planet 8 or not, but they started off with a single trailer, a little tiny trailer, that then went to 16 times the size. It was one of those huge trailers that they brought in, and they were filling that in a half a week and then filling it out again. So, you know, there's a tremendous reaction from the students and their parents when they knew that they have a place that they can bring their clothing. They brought it up and they just disposed of all.
A lot of communities do it when they do their household hazardous waste collection. They'll have various vendors that'll provide different type of outlet services like that.
Right, and that is something that we have promoted. We've had limited participation on it, but we have had some materials that have been dropped off to my location where I've done the recycling promotion, mercury thermometer swap out, and educational material.
Okay. Funding. The DPW has approximately $34,000 in an account dedicated to recycling and promotion. The recycling committee will work with the DPW to determine the best use of these funds. Educational program ideas, lottery, random drawings each week, and if selected resident has recyclable materials on the curb, they receive a prize. Seek donations from area businesses. Recycling Awareness Day, coordinated with Household Hazardous Waste Day. Mail educational materials to residents, use pictures to aid understanding of residents who do not speak English. Cable TV advertisements and promotions, regular press releases tracking recycling program results. Residential recycling drop-off facility. A related aspect of this proposed recycling education program will involve the residential recycling drop-off facility operated by We Care. In an effort to reduce costs for the city and We Care will be presenting to the City Council Public Works Committee's August meeting recommended improvements to this facility, including modifications to the city's regulations for use of the drop-off facility. A more user-friendly design and layout will also be presented for consideration. The city's overall recycling education program should include use of the drop-off facility since a significant amount of trash and recyclables are generated through that facility. And finally, program review. This educational program should be implemented starting no later than the first week in September. It is recommended that the DPW prepare a monthly statement to present to the Recycling Committee and the Public Works Committee summarizing the tons of recyclables collected and the associated financial savings to the city. After 6 months of effort, probably in March of 2004, a report will be prepared making recommendations for modifications. If the program has not significantly improved the residential recycling rate, then other options will be considered, including hiring a recycling coordinator, a mandatory recycling program, or a financial incentive-based program. Before we take comments or recommendations regarding the program, I want to thank you for the time and the energy put into producing that education program. And please pass on our thanks to Bob Landry as well, because I know he was part and parcel of creating that program. What's the committee's wishes as it relates to the program presented?
Well, I view this as a template or a beginning of some sort of a program that the city of Marlborough can probably, should be doing. We have to have an educational program. I do compliment you also for coming up with this, what I call a template, you know, and which can be expanded upon. You know, there are various parts here that you really have to take into consideration. If you want to get into the schools, you really have to talk with individuals within the school department to plan for the fall, you know, to try to get into the classrooms. If you want to try to get onto try to utilize the school's cable channel, getting the students involved in creating something like that. You know, it involves work, you know, getting it going, but it's a very good template. And I don't know.
If I could add one thing, a key component to the entire city's overview of the recycling program is a legitimate solid waste plan. And that's basically a template that explains where we are, what our goals are, what our mission is, and where we want to go and how the steps that we'll be taking to achieve those goals. And I want to thank Bob. He's done an awful lot of work on not only this document, but also the solid waste plan as well. And he's been working on generating the baseline information for the solid waste plan.
I also want to call everyone's attention to talk about appropriate timing. Is today's Metro West News and it's talking about the long haul, the per-bag trash programs and your environment. This was done by John Brodkin, and it's done very well, and it actually names all the communities that have a pay-as-you-throw plan within the area, you know, and Northborough, Sudbury, and Hudson, all of our neighbors all have these pay-as-you-throw programs. So, you know, it would be, I hope everybody has a chance to take a look at it, because, you know, it's a way for the city of Marlborough, you know, because of the financial problems that we're having, is a way to save money through the recycling program. And, you know, if you look down the road, if you go with a pay-as-you-throw plan, it's going to be another, I guess, fee if you really take a look at it. So take a good look at that.
Well, if I could add one thing, we have received a significant amount of assistance from the DEP through the MRIP Recycling Coordinator. And what I have done is generated a letter to the section chief of the DEP's municipal recycling program, first of all thanking them for the assistance that we've received, but also the continuation of that assistance to help us get this program underway and solidly on the ground.
Okay, fine.
Is there a recommendation from the committee?
I'll make a motion that we accept this document as a template for the recycling education program for the city of Marlborough.
We voted out for the full council to do the same, to send it to the mayor and to the Department of Public Works.
There's a motion on the floor and seconded to approve the template as presented regarding the Marlborough Residential Recycling Program. Send it up to the mayor and to the DPW for their approval as well. All those in favor? Opposed?
I thought you were voting no.
No, I'm voting yes. I'm in favor. I started this. I'm not voting against it. Approved, 3-0. We need.
Just one
Go
other
ahead.
point. During next Wednesday, not this Wednesday, the 30th,
Yes.
is the hazardous waste cleanup. It's actually during the week.
It's during the week this time.
So during the week, it's going to be from 10 to 2. Are those the correct times?
I thought the hours were 9 to noon, but I
don't know.
stand to be corrected.
92.
I'd have to get back to you.
Yeah.
Traditionally, it's been 9 to noon, but it may be different this
I
time.
thought that they changed the hours.
I think it goes to 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Not sure, but I
I'm not
thought I read the article in the paper that said 10 to 2. I'm asking the press over there. Yeah, so I think that, I just want to point out that the 30th, it's during the week, it might take the pressure off. It might take the pressure off of the one that we usually have in, what is it, October?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I'd like to schedule a meeting for Monday, August the 11th, to begin going over the, I'm sorry, Bob, the drop-off facility and the ideas you have there. And the other agenda item there will be to begin the discussion on a different matter, and that's as it relates to the public and private streets in the city of Marlborough and how we might be able to increase those numbers and perhaps capture some more Chapter 90 money as well for streets that were already doing the plowing and the trash pickup and things of that nature. So that'll be Monday the 11th at 7 o'clock for Public Works. I hear a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Seconded?
All those in favor? Approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. The first order on tonight's agenda will be order number 10050, and this is the communication from Attorney Cipriano with a petition for rezoning the parcel of land owned by Lauren Elizabeth Realty Trust, Robert J. Velch as trustee, consisting of 2.1 acres shown on parcel 15 of the Assessors Map 73, located at 714 Farm Road, from Residence A2 to Business District. And we had asked, I know that Attorney Cipriano was not here this evening, but I did tell him I was going to proceed on this. We had asked that he provide information for us from the aeronautics, federal and state aeronautics review, which he has done, and the city solicitor has had an opportunity to review that, and has indicated that these are the proper forms, and these issues will then be dealt with in site plan review. So we had just requested that one additional bit of information. We do have the response back, so a recommendation would be in order this evening from the committee as far as the rezoning, to go from a business parcel to go from residence A2 to a business district. Would anyone like to make a recommendation or discuss the forms first? Councilor Poe.
I'll make a recommendation, motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda is order, let me just make sure I have the right one here. Order 039920, and this was the order that the City Council was to investigate the present and future use of the land which was conveyed from the city to Gerald Seymour, trustee of the GNS Realty Trust, in order to determine whether said present and future uses are allowable under the terms of the deed and the City Council order which authorized the deed. And this is another instance where he had asked that the city solicitor become involved and take up this issue, and he has given us correspondence back, and the last two sentences, I believe, in this correspondence, he states that the issue of certain structures and parking spaces encroaching on the municipal right-of-way needs to be addressed by either forcing the removal of the structures or granting permission for them to remain. In any event, these matters would best be resolved at the site plan level. So the answer to our question is that this particular order should be put into this particular matter should be put into the hands of the Site Plan Review Committee. Any discussion on that?
Can I
Councilor-
ask Mr. Lima a question, since he's
Certainly.
here and he had site plan review? Mr. Lima, the last time this came up to you, Mr. Reed had several reservations about, this is what we did the last time, I don't want this to get bounced back to us again. Is this what you're looking for, just the ruling from Attorney Golden?
I think it is. This is what I think we need to have to proceed.
Okay, and then you can proceed with whatever you need in site plan, and you and I can talk about.
I believe so. I can't speak for the whole committee at this point, but I'd like to put it on the agenda for August 5th to discuss further.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Our recommendation would be in order.
Make a motion that we refer to site plan review.
Chair will second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next order on our agenda is Order 03-10022, and that's the application by Metro Park Corporation for a special permit to build and maintain a retirement community at Fitchburg Street. I know that, sir.
Here's a copy of the letter that I believe I had sent to you and to
Okay.
other members of the council referring to what we had agreed to at the last meeting.
Okay. I know that all of you received a packet this afternoon. I was able to, really coincidentally, I was able to pick this packet up at 3:30 this afternoon, so I haven't had a lot of time to review it. I'm sure that some of you may have just picked it up within the past hour or so, and again, have not had a lot of opportunity to review it, but it is a packet of information. It's a joint review of the plans for the residents at Chestnut Ridge, and it's been put together by the Site Plan Review Board. It's actually a different way to present their questions, concerns, and issues to us. Instead of taking up each item individually, I just want to explain to the members of the committee that I have had an opportunity to meet with Attorney Bergeron and Mr. John Deli Priscoli concerning the comments, some of the comments made in here, and I will tell you right from the get-go, I haven't had a chance to read it but one time through myself. I have had an opportunity to meet with them this afternoon at approximately 4:30 until about 5:15, and then I met with several department heads for another hour, hour and 15 minutes concerning this and some of the issues in front of Urban Affairs. And I'd like to just review those conversations with you so we can kind of get a sense for what's going on. When Attorney Bergeron and Mr. Deli Priscoli read the packet, they obviously had their concerns. And in conversation, basically what is developed in conversation with them and also in conversation with our department heads is the following. As an Urban Affairs Committee, I mean, obviously we know that, you know, we have to make some decisions based on every project in front of us. Should we choose to, and I would expect we will review these recommendations, but should we choose to request a lot of these recommendations as they are outlined for us, or come as close to them as they are outlined for us by our department heads. Basically, what we are looking at, committee, is a condominium or a 55 and over retirement community very similar to the Villages at Crane Meadow, which is located in Ward 3, and I'm very familiar with that particular development. You're looking at a condominium complex, and I am just guesstimating, with the help of the department heads, of approximately 120 condominiums at best, placed on 35-plus acres, give or take. Currently, at the Villages of Crane Meadow, we have 91 condominiums on 30 acres, approximately. That could increase, depending on what happens in Urban Affairs, to 102 units on 32 acres, and there are some wetlands out there which you'd have to consider. The developer and his attorney are very aware of how this would downscale the project and obviously decrease the density. In discussion with them, they have indicated to me that at this particular point in time, they do not believe that this is economically feasible, and it's not a project that they would be able to do. Nonetheless, what they have discussed with me, and I will discuss with you, is they would be willing to look at a project of 210 units in density, but they are not really too keen on discussing affordables, should that be the number. Or they would go with the 220 units and be willing to look at 3 affordable units. What I have having talked to both Attorney Bergeron and talking to Mr. Deli Priscoli, and having had a conversation with all our department heads, my suggestion at this point in time is I do feel that this is really a spot in the city that a 55 and over residency or retirement community would be a welcomed addition at this particular site in our city. And I believe that in all cases, I know when I first read the correspondence, I was telling the department heads, I read it and I was like, oh, here we go. I still do believe, having spoken to Attorney Bergeron and to John, and having spoken with our department heads most recently, that there is still a need for some discussion between the two of you and with the department heads to see if we can work something out as far as this project is concerned. I did talk, when I talked to the department heads, and I want to convey to the members of Urban Affairs, when I did speak with the attorney and with John, they in no way said, hey, looking at this, I'm taking my ball and I'm going home and I'm just not going to play anymore and I don't want to be part of this and we don't want to look. But they did indicate to me that it's an entirely different process. It's a whole entirely different design if the density is going to be decreased. They also indicated to me that they had thought from the get-go that density was not a big issue with the counselors. I believe they were aware of the fact that density has been an issue with the department heads. From what the conversations I've had with the department heads, they have made that pretty clear. I know it was an informal site plan review, but I believe Attorney Bergeron and Mr. John Deli Pascoli will agree that there have been red flags concerning the density on this particular piece of property. So that's where we stand with it this evening. I would like to suggest, and we can discuss this, and if you want to discuss some points in here, you know, we're here to do that. But my suggestion, and I would like to request that Attorney Bergeron and John, next Tuesday there is a site plan review meeting. I would like to suggest that you meet with site plan review, and maybe in the in-between time, if you can meet with some of the department heads and review some of their requests, and then get back to me and let me know how you would like to proceed with this. Because I quite frankly, I really don't think it would be appropriate to deep six the entire project just based on our first reading of this document. Any discussion from the committee? I don't know how many of you had a chance to read it and thoroughly comprehend it. Counselor?
Can I just ask you to, you threw out some numbers at us, and I was
The
trying to
numbers I
write them
threw
very
out,
quickly.
okay, the numbers I threw out were this. It would look as if at least a third of the project would be dropped if every specification in this particular packet were met. I mean, to the nth degree.
Right.
And you know that, and there's always room for compromise, and the
Right.
department heads have made that very clear. But nonetheless, they have indicated that what they see in front of them is entirely too dense for their liking. So you're talking about a third of the project, so approximately 120 units.
What would remain? Would be taken out?
Would remain. 120 units would remain, give or take, all right? Should the specifications be met that are in this packet. All right. If we decided as an Urban Affairs Committee to not, not agree, to not agree, to say, look, we don't believe the density is that bad at this particular point in time, and we do not want to see these specifications, then we're looking at currently 222 units. The developer has indicated to me that he would decrease that number to 210. However, he's not willing to go with affordable units at that number. So those were the kinds of conversations that we had.
And did I hear at 222, he'd be willing to have four?
Three.
Three
You
or
heard
four?
three.
Okay.
So the numbers are 120, which is an upscale condominium, 55 and over development.
Thus, the price would go up
Thus, the price would.
significantly, I'm sure.
Price would be doubled.
Double.
Yeah, the price would definitely go up. So it's the 120 there, or the 222 with 3 affordables, or the 210. No numbers are cast in stone, folks.
Right.
We're just talking different scenarios.
And this is all under-
Should we decide to, read through these specs? I don't know where the number might fall, but if you read through the specs right now, the guesstimate would be about 120.
Okay.
All right? That is low density.
That would make it comparable to,
Villages at Crane Meadow,
okay.
okay? A little more dense than that, but there's more land on this particular piece of property, because we're not counting the 8 acres that's set aside there.
And that would increase the price of the unit
He said double.
Well,
to what Villages is basically.
yeah, let me respond, if I may, councilors, on that particular point. If you cut first of all, to cut the project in half, you'd have to maybe even go further than that to meet what's in this letter. But the site where the Crane Meadow project is currently can handle the high-end units, and it's been in process for now 4 or 5 years. There's some decent numbers over there, but it's a long-term, slow go. And the problem that I have is that all the projects that are surrounding, and I've made this clear from the day one, is that you have Southborough, you have other projects coming on in Northborough. They're all more toward the high end. There's a glut of these units, to be quite honest with you. And so and the other thing is that particular site, the Assabet Fitchburg Street site, is not a site where you would put high-end condominiums. even if density wasn't the issue. It's just not the spot for it. So, you know, that's, to meet the criteria that the chairwoman pointed out on this letter, you'd have to cut the project in half and do high-end condominiums. And I'm going to tell you, just so it's clear, I'm not willing to do that product. First of all, economically, it makes no sense. Secondly, I'm competing against everybody, and if you remember the spirit of this conversation from day one, when we came in after the mall was dropped, was to come in with more of a moderate product, which the only way a moderate product can be built is with density. So in following with your conversation about going back to site plan review, I don't have a problem going back to site plan review with one caveat, that we're okay with the density. To me, going back without a density issue resolved of what the density can be in that property is pointless. And that's really where I'm at.
Counsel.
Thank you. John, I don't know if you have these figures available, but just so that we can get an understanding of the density that we're talking about here, in this letter from the department heads, it mentioned it would be equivalent to Fafford's Indian Hill site, Jefferson at Wheeler Hill, and Avalon Orchard. Is that your feeling as well, or is it more closer to a Villages East or some other project that people can go out and visually see?
Right. I don't think any of the examples that are pointed out there are relevant to this particular development. I think what you mentioned there, that the Villages East is much more in keeping with what we're talking about. And actually, if Villages East site was a little bit more normal in shape and size, and the way it was laid out with the rock and that huge, depression in the middle as you drive up in the middle there, that actually site could have had additional density, you know what I'm saying, at the time. But that site there is approximately 15 acres and has 100 units on it. I think it's exactly 100, 101. So that's what we're talking about, and that's what I've always represented.
John, just for clarification, the density issue itself, obviously there were a number of residents in that particular area that came up and endorsed your plan here. Have you heard anything different from them? Are they raising the density issue, or is it more of a department head and others? Who's raising the issue besides the department heads?
Well, when I got this letter at 3:30, I have to be candid with you, I was shocked at the tone of the letter, especially when you read the sentence in here that says, we believe that the plan for the residences of Chestnut Ridge has so many flaws that no amount of revision will make it right. And then it goes on to say that all of the problems with this plan relate to density. Well, I was very clear on the density, what would work, and I actually worked very closely with the neighbors, both in the public forum and also at Mr. Gadbois's house and Mr. Anastas's place. And we've talked about the various things, and I've worked with them on landscaping issues. And I'm not going to speak for the neighbors, but from the casual conversations I've had this evening and this afternoon with them, they're as taken back as I am with this. And this entire letter, I think, is being generated from the department heads. And it all boils down to, we have to have a density number that makes economic sense here. And I'm not changing horses in midstream. This is what we talked about day one. This is why we went through that whole zoning, revisiting the zoning. It's not like this is new. This is something that was clear, and the neighbors are happy, to answer your question, Robert. But, I mean, I don't know if it's appropriate, but if they could speak through me or you, or however you do it through Urban Affairs, I'm not sure what the protocol is.
But Chairperson Naraki to see if Mr. Anastas or somebody might want to just say something regarding the density. Mr. Anastas, do you have a moment?
The neighborhood is 100%.
Need to come up and use a mic, please?
Why don't you sit here?
The neighborhood is 100% in favor of the project. And we have been since the initial meeting of a residential over 55 proposal. So conceptually, we're 100% for it. When we first saw the density, we had no problem with it. Because if you compared it to what kind of density we were going to have with a mall, this was no comparison, and it was residential. And we figured that it had to go through all its various committees and site planning and so on, and that if the department heads or the city had a problem with the number of units, that would be your option. Our option is that we're thrilled to have a 55 and older in our area. We think it's, I'll quote the letter that Mr. Lima, and I think he's 100% correct, that that this site is an excellent location for any over 55 community, giving its easy access to Route 85 connector, its compatibility with the surrounding residential neighborhood, and its proximity to the Aspet River Trail. Our comments are meant to be constructive criticisms aimed at improving the development. So I think even this letter states that the project itself, the concept of the project, is ideal for the location. And over 300 residents in that area are 100% in favor of it. And I would hate to have anything, to be very honest with you, I don't want to dust those halt the mall signs again. I really don't. We've got a project here that makes the neighborhood happy, hopefully makes the city happy, and the developer can make some money, and that's his purpose. So we're not concerned about we weren't concerned about the 254. Now it's down to 222. And if it goes to 220 or 200, that's fine too. And we're working very closely with the architect, with the design for the buffers, and we've had meetings, and we're still meeting, and I just hope this finally gets off and running so that we can throw the signs away.
Thank you.
Mr. Nass, there's one more follow-up, if I
Yes.
may, while you're there. You have been meeting with the landscaping and other
Yes.
designs for the buffer. Are those conversations going according to the way you had hoped they would go? Are
Yes.
all other conversations with other people are going the way you want? You haven't run into any roadblocks?
Not really. We're not 100% in agreement on everything.
But you're making progress.
But we're
toward
making
your end
progress,
goal.
and in fact, I spent 2 hours at the engineer's office, and he gave me plans, so we're very concerned about drainage, and we want to be educated, and he has already agreed to conduct a workshop for the neighborhood to explain how it's going to work and how it's supposed to work. And we want to know that before it goes in, so that we know there's something wrong if it's not working. But to have it not working properly and not knowing why is rather silly in our mind. So everyone's been working very hard on the project, the neighborhood, and all of Mr. Delic Piscoli's people, and we're making progress.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I realize
Yes,
that,
you're excused.
Thank you very much, Madam
Very welcome.
Principal.
and I realize that our goal tonight was not to get into the details of this document because it is kind of very fresh for everybody here.
Yes, it is.
But just to give you a sense of the reason why, I think when John says it doesn't make any sense to go back to site plan review if we're premising it on here, or without resolving the density first. If you once again, if you just add it up, that you've seen this plan. By the way, those are I wanted to use that picture when we were talking here because those are the barracks that they're talking about, and they refer to the fact that this is going to look like a barracks. Give me a break. But you've read some of the comments. You've got a series of cul-de-sacs here. The suggestion is widen the road from 28 feet to 32 feet. We've already discussed how wide 28 feet is, but widen it from 28 to 32 feet. Take the front yard, because the issue was the length of the front driveway, and increase it from 20 to perhaps 30 or 40 feet. Take the 2 rear yards, because the rear yards bump up against each other, and expand the distance as far as the rear yards are concerned from 25 feet, or for the distances between the structures from 25 or 30 feet to 60 feet. So just imagine it just in your head. Everything along those cul-de-sacs is all just growing. What we're doing is we're growing, all of this is designed to grow a subdivision, to move this away from what it was and to turn it into, one of these, a bunch of larger lots with larger roads, and then with a ring road going around it instead of having cul-de-sacs. You can't get there from here. This is not a matter of tweaking, which I think is the reason why John had indicated that, and we certainly appreciate that the chairman is in the spirit of cooperation, looking to see if there's a way, if there's a place here that this can go. But these two places are just way different from each other. They're a whole different place,
But I would add this to your comments, that we all know what we are reading on these documents. I don't know when the last time was that you had a discussion with the department heads, because I can read the numbers also. I am suggesting to you that you have these conversations. That is my suggestion. I'm strongly suggesting that you have these conversations, because I know that you can read those numbers off, and you can say it's going to look like this and it's going to look like that. But I would have to tell, and I don't normally do this, but I am strongly suggesting that you meet with these individuals. And I am asking you to meet before a week from this Tuesday or next Tuesday, and if you have conversations with one or two of them or the entire group of them, because while you look at this and on first read, I agree. I mean, I told them, I looked at it and I threw the paper down and I was like, oh. And I'm sure, and I know that's exactly what you did, but I do know that when you have conversations, what you see written down here, when it is explained, can be explained differently. I do believe that there is some room for, I mean, if you don't want to compromise, fine, but there is a need for some conversation concerning this. I truly do believe that, and I am asking you to have those conversations with these gentlemen.
I respect that, and I'll do whatever your wishes, Madam Chairman, but I think it's actually contrary to that is where they stand when a sentence is in there that we believe that the plan for residents of Chestnut Ridge has so many flaws that no amount of revisions will make it right. Where do you go from there?
Well, then you talk.
Maybe at the meeting, they can come with their plan.
Then you talk about it, and you have conversations about it, which is what I did do. And we all agree that this is a site for this particular kind of development. Everyone is not in agreement in the number of units or the placement of them. I understand that. I understand your concerns as far as reducing the amount of units. I certainly understand the neighborhood's endorsement of this plan. I mean, they are willing to do that. The decision that we will be making as counselors is, I mean, ultimately, do we agree to the density at a particular level, or do we want it less dense? That's the conversations that we are going to have. I don't, and I know you want us to give you a magic number tonight, John, and maybe you don't think it is fair, but I am asking you to have your conversations first. Maybe you can come up with that number, or maybe you will not, but you have not had a conversation. You have gone to one site plan review informally. You were, I know, told it's too dense, and you came back from a 254 to a 243.
222.
To a 222, all right? And nothing else happened after that. I'm just asking if you would have some conversations about it. I don't know, unless, you're all here. If you want to give a number out of what you believe is the right number, I don't feel expert enough at doing that, quite frankly.
We were talking about other over 55 developments in the community. Villages at Crane Meadow has how many units, John?
91.
91, with how many buildable acres now?
Well, that I'm not sure of.
There's 30-plus acres, there's wetlands on that, correct, Al, Ron, someone?
I don't know, it's the entire site is about 25 acres, and I would say probably a third of it is wetlands.
16 acres.
So you're talking about 16 acres?
Buildable?
30 acres initially.
Buildable, I'm looking at buildable.
30 acres was the size of the site.
No, 20, same, take off.
There's a tremendous amount of there's no wetlands, for all practical speaking.
Well, there's a reason for this. So you figure it's about 16 acres, so there's 91 units on 16 acres. Villages East, 100 units?
I don't believe those numbers, but that's fine.
That's why I'm asking their engineer.
We're talking about buildable acres.
Right.
I think we can all sit down and we can all look at those particular numbers. We're looking at constraints on every different parcel that we look at throughout the city, whether it's wetlands, ledge outcrops, steep slopes.
Ron, will you use a mic? I'm sorry, I should have thought earlier. always forget.
Any particular site in the community has its own constraints associated with it, whether it's wetlands, steep slopes, ledge outcrops. There are a number of different constraints. If we talk about buildable acres on any particular lot, I think that is a fair way to consider what the density of a particular project is, because you're essentially removing the unbuildable portion of the lots. The special part of that is taking, what do you actually take out? Do you take out all the wetlands? Do you take out all the steep slopes? Do you take out all the detention facilities, which are an integral part of the development but can't be built upon? And depending on the size of the development, can be bigger or smaller than what you're actually considering from parcel to parcel. I think it is fair to look at the projects from a developable acreage standpoint and determine what the densities are. And I think if you do that, you will find that this particular development exceeds any other development that we have in the city as far as density goes.
That's why I'm asking.
We'd be happy to do that analysis.
Yeah. That's why I'm asking the question, to figure out exactly how, buildable units on buildable acres, because as you know, you do have some parcels of land that do have wetlands. You can't include those, and whatever the setbacks are. So I wanted to go with the villages at Crane Meadow, the villages east. Now, villages east had how many?
Well, villages east,
That's 15
it's
acres.
15 acres. It had some wetlands and so on, and it was 100 units on 15 acres. This one we're talking about here is,
I'm talking buildable. If you,
right. Well, as far as buildable, it was less than 15 acres.
Yeah, because I'm looking at, because when you built the one down on the villages east, a lot of that was a blasted site.
Right, and only that, it was in a very weird configuration. If you remember, Mr. Hartley had sold off odd pieces here and there, and then there was Bickford's connected to part of it and all that. And it was a very odd-shaped site in comparison to this site.
Yep.
And that site, your base acreage, before you deduct the things you're talking about, the wetlands, et cetera, you started with 15 acres and you built 100 units. At this particular site, you have 30 acres, and other than the retention area, it's 100% upland. And the retention area was dug out of upland.
Yep.
So,
See, that's the whole thing that I'm saying, is that you don't have wetlands per se on the site.
That's
You
right.
you do have one section down close to the old.
that's on the
railroad.
commercial site.
That's on the commercial site, yeah. But we're talking about buildable acres, again. Is there any?
I agree, and if we're talking about a parcel of land of a certain size and you have no constraints to deal with, the fact is you're going to be able to get more units overall per square acreage, if you will. Now, again, that should factor in and of itself, that should factor into the price of the units that they're building out there. I think it is only fair to the developer and to the committee and to the council as a whole to do this analysis even Steven and indicate to you, here's what this development is per acre. How many units are on this particular parcel? How many units are on this particular one? And go out and take a look at those particular developments and assess for yourself what's an appropriate, what you want this particular development to look like. Knowing that the intent, or one of the criteria here, are that we're trying to make these units a little more affordable. Mm-hmm. And if the developers are set on that particular criteria and wants to categorically say that we are going to make these units less expensive, then there should be some commitment along those lines too. I haven't heard any conversation at any of the meetings about what the price is going to be. And again, I think I understand that the developer is well-intentioned along those lines, but as the development takes place, as construction costs come in, as those things affect the cost of the project as a whole, those all factor into what the ultimate price of these units is going to be. And you know, from the department head standpoint, we genuinely believe this project is much more dense than it should be.
And if I could just, at our last meeting, if I could just interject, we did discuss approximate prices, and 186 units will be priced anywhere between $250,000 to $280,000. They are 1,600 square feet, and 28 units at approximately $300,000, and they are 2,200 square feet. Is that correct, John?
Approximately. I don't have the notes in
Those
front
are
of
the
me.
numbers that were discussed briefly at the last meeting. So you have, just so you kind of know where.
To follow up with your, because I think you know, you have a very, it's a very methodical way of looking at it, and I think it's appropriate. If you look at the Villages East, for instance, you have 15 acres. All of it is not buildable, and there's 100 units, or 101, I can't remember. I think one was dropped. I think it was approved for 102, but we only built 100 or something. And so that site had constraints that this site doesn't have, basically, is what we're saying. And if you take that math around and you turn it around, I mean, I don't see why it's more dense. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something.
And I think it's, you know, it's worth having those numbers. Of course, once again, I think
That's
from
easy,
the beginning,
easy to do.
when we came in originally and asked for rezoning, which would allow us to build 240 to 250 units, we always said that what we were trying to do, what we were trying to do was to build units which were smaller, as our base unit is, so that they could be priced below the market. We weren't building in automatic affordability numbers. We were saying the market was going to drive those things. That's the point of this. That was the point of it being more dense, and the point of having the smaller units is that you were going to be getting, we knew that with that, you'd be getting a lower price. We just knew that that was true. And that's, and we I don't know, we keep facing this. I mean, there's a natural, there's always this tension that on the one hand, we all have concerns about affordability. We try dealing with it in the nickeling and diming it by having 1 unit here, 2 units there, while at the same time wanting to build a product which keeps moving up scale. And that is kind of the heart of the issue, is that we were looking for more density, smaller units, and because we're to be able to price below them, to try to go the other way in this project.
Following along on that point, you know, each site, the Villages at Cran Meadow, had its own set of problems because of the proximity of wetlands. It was, you know, you had to work that thing in and out of every nook and cranny to get those units in. The Villages East, you had to blast it out of, you know, and the configuration of the shape of the lot, you had to blast it out of the
100% rock.
Yeah. You know, that, you know, and you take a look at the site costs, the site preparation costs for each one of these is going to be different. Chestnut Ridge is mostly gravel.
Well, it's clay till.
Yeah, clay till, gravel. And, you know, you have a certain amount of, you know, I don't know what the site cost would be to prepare each pad for each building, which you'd have to break it down as to, you know, the percentage of site. You know, are you going to have, you know, what, you know, is it a balanced site? You know, are we going to flatten the thing out and then just build it around, or are we going to take and create hills and valleys and things like that? I noticed that in looking at the plan, you know, you pretty much are cutting this thing all out and moving a lot of fill into other areas around it, primarily for that other site.
Well, what we're doing is over 50% of the units are walkouts.
Yep.
So we're using the hills and the different changes in elevation to give proportions and change all the different elevations. And that's the nice thing about the layout that doesn't seem to be you know, coming across, I guess, is that as you go up the street, they're all different. You know, each one is different, and that's the beauty of it. And we have to balance the site because that's the appropriate way. There is substantial material that would have to be moved. Fortunately, other than the piece that's down by Mr. Turcotte's house, which I believe is ledge, thus far, when I did the excavation for Assabet, it was all clay till and, you know, with some small stones and burrow, what they call standard burrow. And we used that over there. So we're pretty comfortable with the material that's there. But that's why the site is attractive for any use, is because you don't have a wetlands in the middle of it, and you don't have a quarry, and you don't have an odd shape. And that's because of a lot of hard work of putting parcels together and building roads and you know, assemblage, and 7 years of work to get it to that. And I think when the final analysis comes in, you'll find that the Villages East is more dense, pound for pound, than this.
Ron, do you figure that you could figure out how many buildable acres they actually had in each one of these sites?
Absolutely. It's not a difficult exercise, and I think it is worth going through. And again, it would give you a sense of the scale, and I think the concerns that the department heads have about the density in this particular project. Again, without boring the committee tonight with numbers, we are looking at, as I understand it, a density not inconsistent with the DeCenzo Boulevard project, the Fafford project down behind the shopping center.
Are you actually trying to figure out how many buildable acres they had there?
We will do the analysis. We will take some representative.
It's different, though. That's totally different. You know,
No,
those
it's
units are not
we're
connected.
talking about buildable acreage.
acres.
Can I just interject, Ron, for 1 second, Mr. Chairman? It is different, and I'll tell you why. I agree with you. A buildable acre is a buildable acre, Ron. There's no disputing that. But what's different is the DeCenzo Boulevard situation is conventional housing that's semi-connected through subterranean walls and everything and all this. But what it is those units are second-floor living, okay, for the most part. In other words, the bedrooms, they're more conventional, like a Hager Meadows condominium or the Curtis Avenue condominium. They have a garage or something on the lower level, and some of them are actually like 3 stories. You know, the basement is actually half garage and like an alcove. The first floor is actually the middle floor, then the bedroom level is the top floor. That's not the case here. This is more like a ranch house, where everything is spread out and long and very horizontal in nature. That's why people want it, is because you don't have to deal with stairs and all the baggage that goes with that, and all the garages are at ground level and so on. It chews up a lot more real estate. If you took a product like Curtis Avenue and put it on this site and put 200 units, we wouldn't be having this discussion, because it's a lot less real estate, chewed up with a footprint, just so you know.
Councilor Vidget, I'm sorry, you done? Ed, are you finished? Yep. Councilor Vidget?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back in the good old days when the mall was before us, and I wasn't real popular with my neighbors back then, I had approached John and asked him about the possibility of doing an over 55 project. Because of the market conditions and the fact that other issues that John was involved in with other projects, it wasn't feasible at that time. And I think the time has come and everything lined up perfectly where he brought this project before us. And I don't want to see it go away. I think it's important to keep in mind, we have an 8-page letter from 7 department heads, and I don't think that can be discounted and said, just throw the thing away, we're not even going to look at it. Whether I agree or disagree with some of these issues, we do need to take a look at them. I don't think we should be doing big, wide streets. I think it makes for thoroughways through projects rather than help for safety. I think it does just the opposite. I would ask the chair that it's an unusual situation that we're facing here, but that you take part in the site plan review meeting also. You have the sentiment of what the council is discussing. You have the sentiment of the neighbors that are in full support of this, and I would ask that you kind of, participate in that meeting, because I think it's important to look at what the department heads are putting in front of us, but also keep in mind that I know I'm one neighbor that doesn't want to see the project go away. I think this is a good project for the city. I think the revenue from this is going to be important for the city. It's something where we're not going to have problems with the schools. It's a win-win all the way around. So I'd like to see us work through this process somehow. I think your recommendation is a good one, and I would ask that you participate in that to try to iron some of these things out from both sides, and let's move forward with the project if possible. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Councilor Jurgens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a suggestion tonight, which may upset the Urban Affairs and Council as well as the applicant. But I think that we have to look at, actually, if you're not familiar with the Crane Meadow or Villages East, to take a look at it. And have a site visit to see, I don't know if it's possible, that to lay out with spray paint or whatever, one of your sections of your roads with the two of them, so you can actually look at and see whether 15 feet or 20 feet or 30 feet is what you would like to recommend, or whether you can live with this plan at all. I mean, I've been in the east side many times, and the only drawback I see as a non-resident is not enough parking when you have guests. They've widened the street and they're gonna put parking on one side. I don't believe there should be sidewalks. I live on a dead-end street, and no one uses the sidewalks on either side. I walked this Sunday getting signatures, and I didn't even use the sidewalk. I walked down the street and went boom, boom, boom. So, I mean, that's only my personal preference with coming with sidewalks. But I think you have to go out and take a look at it. We did it with the mall, we did it with Target and everything else, and I think we would get a better realization on what would the number be other than pulling a number out of the hair. So that's my suggestion to Urban Affairs, is to convene a meeting out there and the other councilors, so then we could see it. Now, John, and maybe through the chair to John, would it be feasible to mark out, like say, I'm picking Road 8, the first 4 buildings and the other 4 buildings, so we could actually see how close they are to the boundary lines, how they are close to each other.
You mean up at Fitchburg Street?
Yeah, Fitchburg
Sure.
Street.
Or do you mean at the Villages East, to see?
No,
You'd see those, but...
Or to stake it, to stake the Fitchburg Street site?
If any council wants to go to Village East, go to Crane Meadow, see what it's like, and then come up and see what it's laid out instead of talking about abstract numbers.
We've done that
I have no
before.
problem walking through Villages East or staking out.
It's a great idea.
What we would look, which is a good suggestion, because we've done that before, and gone to other sites and walked them, and they are staked out or
The reality of
painted out or whatever, and you can basically get a better handle on how big, how wide that road actually is.
Actually, you'll find that the roads at Villages East, which we've all determined they're a little bit too narrow, I think are 22 feet, and the 24-foot is the main road going in. I could be off slightly. We could figure that out when we get there, but it's much narrower than what we're talking about here. Keep in mind also that there's a substantial road feeding this project. I mean, a major road, a road that is designed basically to 128 specifications, literally.
But incidentally, keep in mind also that that road, Crowley Drive, is 28 feet wide.
At the narrowest point. At the mouth of it, it's, I think, 50 feet wide.
But as soon as you get into the site, it's 28 feet, which is what is being proposed on the current plan.
So that road is built as an industrial road to handle, much heavier traffic than what we're talking about here.
And, okay, that would be, and certainly, and we would actually begin a meeting there.
Yeah, I to help
At the same time.
to help not burden the city officials or anybody else, I will ask Bruce Alec, if you approve this, since he did the engineering for all the prior projects that we're talking about and has it all on his database and knows where the wetlands are since he located the flags, to do those calculations that Mr. Lafreniere suggested, because it'd be a lot easier. He's got the CAD system, and Bruce is an independent engineer. The city has used him for doing work for the city. He's also done work for me. So he's as pretty third party as possible, and let him make those analyses. But I want to make sure I'm being analyzed against a similar product. I don't want to be looking at garden-style apartments, which are 4 stories tall or 3 stories tall, like a JPI situation, or looking at, all non-restricted units, which would be like the Curtis Avenue or the Hager Pond, to come to my mind. As long as it's apples and apples, I have no problem. I welcome that, because I would never bring anything forward here that I don't, that is so far out of whack that, what I'm saying? So I think that analysis is good, and then maybe, we'll all learn something, and I'm welcome to that, and I think that's a good suggestion. As far as walking the sites, whatever you feel is appropriate. The only thing I'm going to ask in all this is that we can do this in a timely fashion. I'd like to get this resolved, at least these basic questions and reconnaissance resolved in the earliest possible time frame, so I can come back in front of this body with additional information and, you know, keep the process moving in a positive vein, as others have suggested.
Would it be realistic then to ask that you have the site ready for us to walk on the 28th, this coming Monday?
I could have it ready,
6?
absolutely.
Could everyone make that? No? I'm sorry.
We have a meeting.
I know, it starts at 8. Yeah, the meeting starts at 8.
It's almost...
Do you want to do it, I mean, you don't have to.
7 o'clock. Meet at 7 o'clock on the site.
Well, I suggested 6.
You want to meet as
6
early as
o'clock's not good
possible.
for
You want to meet as early as possible so
Yeah.
you get back here for the 8 o'clock meeting.
Yeah.
Right, this won't take
But
a
if
long,
there's
this
no
isn't like
quorum,
you're
the
going to be
council
walking into
president-
Oh,
the
I'm
woods to try
sorry.
to stake
Is there
something.
It's all open, there's no trees,
Right.
it's all
This
open.
isn't going to take a long, this is going to be a long walk. Right.
Where would you,
Take it right off of Crowley Drive.
which
Okay.
part?
I'll stake whatever part you request me to stake.
You know, there are various roads going in, you know, some of them already still have trees on them.
Right, I would stake the first one next to the retention area, since that's been stripped, or the first open cul-de-sac,
Yeah, that pretty much goes up to the top with that.
or whatever you direct me to stake, I'll stake.
Probably as you're going up,
Yeah, why don't we look at the plan?
You're talking Road 1 or Road 9?
Excuse me, but I think I lost track of this meeting. What are we doing, Counselor Clancy?
Let's get those maps open again.
actually, there would be the second road in.
Okay, is that
Second road
doable?
in,
Sure.
not the first, because the first
We're
one,
doing it for the Conservation Commission.
I guess you're walking, huh?
oh, I've walked,
Oh, okay.
I've walked about every square inch of this town,
He's walked that site several times.
several times.
You're talking Road 3 yet?
As you're going up on Crowley Drive, would be the second
Second
road
cul-de-sac.
on the left.
That's fine. I'm happy,
Monday does not appear to be a good time because of subcommittee meetings, and I really hadn't thought of that. So,
well, I'm available, I'm at your disposal, so you tell me when.
excuse me?
Monday the 4th?
Saturday morning?
No, I can't do it the 4th.
Not the 4th.
This Saturday? Yeah, but can you have it ready that fast?
Oh, yeah.
You can have it ready for this Saturday morning?
Ready tomorrow. That's the private sector at work.
Counselor,
Another comment.
we're working on a date. Is that what you're going to comment on?
No, I was just going to try to add to that date, actually. I was going to see, maybe as part of that walk-around, we also take a look at Villages East and Villages of Crane Meadow, so you have that comparison all in your head on the same
And
time.
I can also have the numbers for you, so you know what the
So I'd like
buildable
to see
acreage
if we-
actually is.
Let's see if we can coordinate that.
When's the site plan meeting?
Saturday afternoon, is that what we want?
Saturday morning.
Saturday morning.
Saturday morning at 8 o'clock.
That gives you time to go individually drive through.
8 o'clock.
That's fine.
So the first site plan review meeting is actually the first Tuesday in August.
Saturday's
I
fine
know
with
that,
me.
but that's all right.
Okay, so as long
It's
as
still
we try to do this before that.
Okay, committee, how is 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. this Saturday morning? How does that look for folks?
Love early.
That sounds like
Oh, I can't wait.
You don't want to play golf, dick around.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock this Saturday.
Start at Fitchburg Street, is that what you'd like to do? or-
What's this Saturday's date?
The 26th.
26th.
8 a.m.,
Fitchburg?
and we will meet at Fitchburg.
I think that's the simplest, then we can look at what,
Are you kidding me?
No,
Meet earlier
I haven't engaged with
I
that.
can go earlier.
at 8 a.m.?
Yes.
What time would you like to meet, Counselor?
Don't say 6.
Don't even go.
My tea time's at 7:20.
7 a.m. on a Saturday morning you would like to meet.
What time?
7 o'clock.
7 a.m. And being the morning person that I
I
am,
was kidding, I'm
We'll have
not.
the Dunkin' Donuts there.
Thank you.
we will be there at 7 a.m. Fitchburg Street on Saturday, the oh, wait a minute.
26th.
What's today?
Today's
This is going to be posted. This is going to be a legal meeting.
Yeah, we have time.
You have to, okay.
Okay, now,
You'll go to Fitchburg Street and then to Villages at Crane Meadow, which you'll be able to get access to,
oh, we can walk in the streets, I
Walking
mean,
around.
I see Mr. Junta here. I don't know if he
in
is.
Villages East, right?
think he-
Good.
for breakfast? Okay, we'll be there. All right,
I think that's the most appropriate one, because that's more in keeping with where I want to be price-wise, and, you know, and so on, and that was my original intent, if you remember, when I did Villages, some of those that you were, there's a few of you still here than when I did that original project.
And I will tell you also, I do not have any, and that's fine as far as when you plan to meet, any of you, be it at site plan, site plan review, I need to know that date.
Or individual meeting?
Or any meetings that you have with the department heads, I would be very happy to attend. I would just ask that you please, let me know the schedule, and I can go over your schedule, my schedule with you.
Just to ask about that site plan meeting in advance. It's a week from, it's going to be Tuesday, that first Tuesday in August.
And that is
in the morning at
5th, yeah.
what's that day?
August 5th.
August 5th.
August 5th?
But maybe there's a chance of doing some individual meetings prior to that.
Yes.
Was what I was
I
kind of
would like to, if you could, before that meeting, if you have an opportunity to schedule some time with the department heads. I don't know what their schedules are, I certainly don't know yours, and I know you don't know mine, but we can all maybe get together and I can give you...
My first step was going to be, just to make it simple and fair for the city employees and the committees and so on, is to have Bruce immediately do that build analysis, so you could bless it, make sure you're okay with it, because I don't want to circulate a document that the engineers don't agree with. All right, Ron?
It would certainly save us a lot of time, and we could simply do a cursory
that as a
review and
baseline.
make sure that the numbers comport with ours.
Which is fine.
Is there any expectation, Counselor, for any of the department heads to be there on Saturday?
Oh, we'd love you to join us at 7 a.m.
It's a public meeting, Commissioner.
It is.
Free.
Yeah.
It's free.
You're welcome, you're most welcome, but I am not going to take attendance. You're welcome to come.
The teacher over
You're
here.
welcome to come. I believe that, you're welcome to be there.
Okay.
I'm not demanding or requiring you to do it, no. I don't think I don't think I have jurisdiction to do that, sir.
Is it the intent to visit Villages East?
Yes.
Might be a good idea to maybe start on that end and work our way out on the other end. If you're going to go to the Villages at Cream Meadow as well?
I would like to, for those who want to, but it's up to you. We're going to start at Fitchburg Street.
You are? Okay.
Do you want to change the,
No, start at Fitchburg Street. Start so you know what you're looking at.
we're going to start at Fitchburg Street,
That's fine.
then we're going to go to the Villages East.
And then come back to the Crane Meadow? Okay.
I don't think they want to go there, but I sure wish you
Go
would,
there?
because it's in my ward.
Okay,
But we will do the analysis, Ron, on the land, on both of those.
that would be great.
That way there, it's, it's...
Are you suggesting another order?
I want to make sure you get a flavor for all the different types of units and the constraints.
Would you
and-
like to suggest that we visit another place also?
Well, I think you're all familiar with Fafford's development.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a need to visit that, but again, just for the purposes of getting a sense of what this particular facility is going to look like, I think it's important to get to look at as many as you can.
And I agree, I think I really would prefer that we see all three of them myself. Counselor Hunt?
Thank you. I think all of us were a bit surprised by the letter today, okay? I know not only the developer, but the councilors. But I think that's because this was the first time that the city officials had a chance to look at the development in a thorough manner. We've been discussing this for a few years now, based on the mall, and then when John came with the with this suggestion, which we almost entirely feel is a good use for the land. The neighbors were good. We've had many meetings and a lot of communication. And we were kind of, I think, well, I know, we thought this was pretty much put to bed, that we were going to vote on 220 units until we saw what was put in front of us tonight. I think it's only fair that we examine these things. I think going to the sites, we have to make sure that if we put 200 units on there, that they look good. We have to feel comfortable that this project looks good. It's going to be at a key point in the city. We don't want it to look bad. The other two projects look fine. I mean, if they're going to look similar to this project, I think we'll all be fine. And I really think that's the comfort level that I know I have to have. I'm more concerned about the appearance of these things, what they look like when we drive by them, when when we're looking at them, than that they look, that they look pretty. Just because they're going to be inexpensive, this may not be, maybe we should, we don't need them cheap necessarily. I mean, if he can put 200 units or 220 units at 300,000, I don't care what he sells them for. That's up to John. But we want to just make sure that the units look good. I think some of the concerns in those letters, maybe question that. And I think that's why we have to look at the different sites and look at the numbers. And we have to keep the communication open to put this project to bed. And it will get put to bed. We will work this out. I mean, we've been very good at working it out to date, and I know it's frustrating, especially for John, because he's been sitting in this thing for 7 years with this and that. But I think a lot of us feel the same kind of frustration, because we've been here a long time also. So we'll look forward to seeing everybody Saturday.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
I'd just like to thank everybody for the positive suggestions, and I look forward to meeting Saturday.
Are there, from our department heads, is there anything you'd like to add at this particular point in time?
No, I'll speak on behalf of the rest of the department heads. I want to thank you for the consideration, too. And we understand the concerns you have with respect to the late communication, or what appears to be a late communication in the process. But it is because we have not participated in the process to the extent I think we should have early on, so that we could have got some of these conceptual types of issues resolved at the outset. So we appreciate the time and the consideration, and we look forward to working through the process as well.
It's no problem. Are there any other issues that you want to discuss in regards to this project at this particular point in time? Anyone on the committee at this time?
None of this. No, not now.
A motion has been made to table.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Remains tabled. Thank you very much.
We'll be meeting at 7 a.m.
We need to, right. Can you wait 1 second? Can you wait 1 second, everybody? We need to,
Announce the meeting now, you don't have to post it.
yeah. We're going to be meeting at 7 a.m. on July 26th at the Fitchburg Street site, and then proceed to Villages East and then to Crane Meadow. What I would like to do, if it's possible, is schedule another meeting. No, I guess the 28th is basically taken, because there is finance at 6.
Perhaps we could do this at 7. I'm not sure
We
how
could go
long it's going to
for at least 45 minutes. So let's schedule Urban Affairs, because we can always cancel Urban Affairs if we had to, but I'd rather have it scheduled. We're going to schedule an Urban Affairs meeting, Larry, besides the Saturday one, Monday, the 28th at 7 o'clock. And then what I'll do that evening is we'll bring a calendar out and schedule, see what everyone's calendar looks like from then on. Continue. Motion would be in order to adjourn.
Adjourn to adjourn.
All in favor, opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.